An article came out today outlining some home run swing trades that Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens could go for as we approach the trade deadline. They include the likes of Alexis Lafreniere, Adam Boqvist, and Sean Durzi, so you won't want to miss anything we have to say about this article on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. And quickly, before we get into the video, guys, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching these videos all the time and you haven't hit that button, that's about 60% of you guys. Hit it now. We have daily content. We know you love the stuff. And before we get into the video as well, I'm going to continue my daily Montreal Canadiens calendar thing, and today's is trivia. I'm going to ask the question now. The answer will be at the very end of the video. So the question today: on January 2nd, 1991, who made 24 saves to record the first shutout of his career in the Canadiens 3-0 win over the Oilers? January 2nd, 1991. Give you some time to think about it. Jesse, let's get right into the video. Alexis Lafreniere. That's the first one we want to talk about today, and let's just get straight into this. Alexis Lafreniere has been linked to the Canadiens since before he was even drafted by the New York Rangers. That being said, his first few seasons have been mired with inconsistency and frustrating deployment. He showed flashes during some playoffs, but he's failed to take that next step in his game. Now, this article, again, came out today, and this was sort of the headliner, the guy that they said maybe Montreal can go after. Do you think Montreal should realistically take a shot at Alexis Lafreniere?
I wouldn't personally, even though I'd such had high hopes. Speaking of the World Juniors that are going on right now, I think we all remember Josh when he was just tearing it up at the World Jays and just scoring those clutch goals. Like, he looked like he'd be a surefire, amazing NHLer, but he's still young. We've seen a lot of players, once they get a little bit older, really progressing quite a bit, so there is still time for him. He's shown some brilliance. He scored at the NHL level, getting 19 goals in one season, showing up big in playoffs. But for me, it's the reason that I'm going to decide, Josh, not to really go with him is just because I find it starts to get a little bit too risky when you have too many reclamation projects sort of going on. I know it always makes sense, Kent Hughes is very savvy to buy low and, and to really and improve on those players, as he did with Kirby, Dach. And a lot of time it does make sense. I don't think we're done doing that yet with certain players, but I don't know if Alexis Lafreniere is the player to really try this with. I think it's great to do, but if you start doing that too much, gambling with young players to turn around their career, at one point it'll get you.
It'll get you. It'll get overloaded. If you have too many guys you're trying to fix at once, some people are going to sacrifice some ice time, some touches, some crucial development. Yeah, if you can focus on one guy, two guys to really develop, it's great. But like you said, having too many is a problem. And another thing is, I think, the asking price. And we discussed this before the show. The Rangers want a first and a good prospect at the bare minimum for Alexis Lafreniere. And as a fan, it's like, yeah, this guy could be a superstar still, maybe. Like, he's a big physical forward, as you saw there. He has 60-plus hits this season already. He has a goal-scoring touch. We saw it all through his junior days, all through the World Juniors, and a little bit at the NHL level with a near 20-goal season. But the problem is, would you really be comfortable giving up one of our decent prospects and probably, like, I think the Rangers, if they call Kent Hughes, they say, hey, we're willing to give you Lafreniere, but you need at minimum to give us your Florida first this year and someone like, for example, like Joshua Roy. Would Kent Hughes just hang the phone up immediately? Would he listen at all? Like, I think that's where the Rangers are probably going to start, and that's another reason why I think it might not be the best idea, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit too much, for myself. But Josh, would you trade him just for a first round draft pick, that Florida pick?
Putting me on the spot here. Look, this draft looks really deep, but, oh man, it's so tough, right? Because seeing a guy like Lafreniere, the potential in him, I'm sort of like, I fall into that same place that the Rangers are. It's like, he has so much value theoretically, but he hasn't proven it on the ice. For just that Florida pick, I think we can take a flyer on him because our pick's going to be higher than theirs anyway this year. And I think Florida, like I've said, I think they're going to get a lot better. And that pick's going to end up somewhere in the 15 to 20 range. Maybe it won't, maybe it will, but a 15 to 20 overall for Alexis Lafreniere as a similar Kirby Dach reclamation project, I think you go for that. What about you?
I think it's probably just low enough. I think you raised a good point. You're kind of you're kind of switching my mind on there. I think, yeah, once, that being said, yeah, Florida's going to definitely finish off probably better than us in the standings. So, yeah, I think that, then it starts to get reasonable, right? But, anything kind of above that, definitely nothing like no sort of top 10 pick or anything like that. But, like, he could be amazing next to Kirby Dach, right? If ever that did work out, that could be the answer for, like, a really amazing first line in Suzuki and Caufield. And then maybe we're putting somebody like Monahan there, and then we're having like a second line with Dach and like Lafreniere, and then maybe like something like Slafkovsky, right? And these are all young guys that could grow together, with the exception of Monahan on your first two lines. So, I mean, that would be a really good look going forward.
I think so too. I think it's interesting. However, I don't think the Rangers ever go that low, and I don't think I'd want us to trade anything less than that. Let's move off Lafreniere really quick. Let's move into the second topic. Now, this one here, we're going to kind of breeze through this a little quicker. Adam Boqvist, and if you don't really know who Adam Boqvist is, he's a right-handed defenseman who plays for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's quite good. This is what the article has to say about Boqvist. Former 8th overall pick, one of those players that the Blue Jackets could be tempted to move for some forward help down the line because they recently drafted David Juraj and Denton Mateychuk, who both play on the right side. Despite Mateychuk being a left-handed defenseman, he plays on the right side, and those were 6th and 12th overall in the draft. And on a team like Montreal, they project Boqvist to maybe be a top pairing guy. I'm going to be real. I don't see Montreal ever landing Boqvist. The article goes on to say how, Columbus has wanted Josh Anderson. Look, I know Columbus needs some forward help, but trading Boqvist, who could potentially be like easily a top 4 defenseman, probably top pairing guy in the future, like what is Montreal going to be able to give them? And why would they want to get rid of Boqvist when they're now, I think, pushing for a playoff spot? Jesse, I think a better option here might be to go after someone like Denton Mateychuk, a much younger guy. And again, they have so many right-handed people playing on that side, and Mateychuk's experience on the right-handed side. What do you think? Do you think Mateychuk could maybe be a better option to go after down the line than Adam Boqvist?
Well, I personally wouldn't go for either because I find Mateychuk, again, is a little bit too young. Like, he was just drafted, and we're trying to find those prospects that are fit with the core of, Suzuki, Caufield, Slafkovsky, etc., even though Slaf is obviously still super young. But yeah, we want to get them a little bit further on in their development. So that's why Boqvist would be the perfect guy. But, they're in a win now mode. They just got Johnny Gaudreau. Like, they're having a terrible year, but they're figuring, like, we're going to bounce back, and there's a lot of parity right now in the NHL. You just kind of have to keep afloat, have a somewhat good season, make your moves at the deadline and make a push for it. I think the NHL is really trending in sort of that direction. I think that's how Columbus sees themselves as an organization. So for that reason, I don't think they'd be trading. And I don't think Mateychuk fits our timeline for right now.
For that reason, I'm out. Not doing that trade. I don't think that's a good option. I wanted to bring that up in the article because Boqvist's a very, very good fit for Montreal, but I don't see it happening. Let's move on to the third one here. LA defensemen. So the article kind of goes into a few different Los Angeles Kings defensemen that the Habs could go after. They cite the fact that Sean Durzi, Jordan Spence, Drew Doughty, Matt Roy, Sean Walker, Brant Clark, and Helge Grans are all pushing for spots next year. And in the long term, it seems that Doughty and Clark are locks to occupy the top 4 roles on the right side, which I disagree with. We'll get into that in a second. But they say any of Durzi, Grans, or Spence would be an immediate target, as Montreal has done extensive scouting on LA and the Ontario Reign. So Montreal has been looking into LA for a while. And I'll bring up Sean Durzi's stats real quick, because I think he's the main guy here. 21 points in 37 games this season as a right-handed defenseman playing on the left side on the second pairing with Matt Roy. Jesse, what do you think about this one? I think Sean Durzi is kind of the perfect guy for the Habs to get a little further along in his development. And again, like they said, they have the likes of Brant Clark coming up and Drew Doughty, who seemingly is not aging very much, still there, poised to be a top 4 defenseman. Do you think this is a better fit than any of these other trades for Montreal? Because I kind of do.
Yeah, it is. It's naturally the best fit. I've really noticed him in all the games that we've played against the Kings so far this year. 24 years of age, really fits our timeline really well. The only question is our past history with Mac Bergevin going to hinder any sort of trade talk? I would think not. I think, they're professionals at the end of the day. They can put that stuff to the side. If anything, it can maybe help a little bit. So, this would be interesting to look at. I think that it's, with the Canadiens, we got to shore up our right defense. We got to, figure out our top line and our goaltending, so that's one of these major issues we're definitely going to be addressing sooner and later. And I think the LA Kings, they have some good options.
Yeah, I think they do. Now, the one part I disagreed with in that thing was that they said Drew Doughty was a long-term lock. I don't know how many years he has left in his prime. He really doesn't seem to be aging that much. He's still an elite defenseman, but to say he's a lock now, I think Durzi could easily make that jump. And honestly, I think Durzi would demand a similar price to Lafreniere at this point, especially with the point pace he's on this season for that fiery offense they have in LA. I think it'd be an awesome trade target. I think it would cost Montreal quite a lot. Again, probably that Florida pick and maybe a couple prospects, maybe a first, a third, and something else that LA likes. but I think it's a better fit than the rest, and I'd be excited if we heard that Kent Hughes is moving in that direction. Final trade I wanted to get into today, one that's been mentioned before, but it's a different Vancouver player. We've mentioned a lot more Bo Horvat, but we know that Brock Boeser has also been linked to the Montreal Canadiens, and we'll show what they have to say in the article here. They say Brock Boeser is another player that Canadiens are confirmed to be following quite closely, as the club's professional scouting team has held the high-scoring winger in high esteem for the last few years. The scoring winger has officially asked for a trade out of Vancouver, as things are seemingly not working out for the Canucks, who have a glut of young wingers they prefer to play over Boeser at this time. The only problem is Boeser has a $6.6 million cap hit, and he's a little older. He's still a very good goal scorer, and I think for the right price, he could be a very good fit on pretty much any team, let alone Montreal. But the problem is, again, I don't think anyone really knows what Boeser's trade value is. Jesse, do you think Vancouver even bites at all at something like Josh Anderson, who we'd probably have to move to make the salary work, or maybe even Dadonov or something like that, and a couple of decent draft picks, maybe not even a first? I don't know. What do you think Vancouver might want?
Well, I think right now we could still buy relatively low, so there is a chance of getting to do something there. But at the same time, it's, I don't see them going necessarily for that. I think similar with Laff is they're probably going to want a first round pick, something in the likes of that, with a good prospect as well, which I think is probably a lot more justified in the case with Brock Boeser at this point. But at the same time, I think we need to be patient. We have a really good young core, and we're going to have to be very selective about the moves we make in the future. Unfortunately, I don't think that Boeser should be a part of our future. So.
No, I think it would be a lot of moving around. Another big contract we're bringing in. Even if we ship one out, it's another big risk, especially with how he's been playing this season and, family things that obviously he can't control. It's been a sad story for Brock Boeser. Again, like you said, though, it'd be another reclamation project where we'd probably have to ship out some good picks or prospects and hope that he gets back to that $6.6 million form. So, unfortunately, I agree with you. I don't think that's a good target for Montreal, but I do think that Sean Durzi and potentially Lafreniere and maybe even someone on Columbus could be good fits for Montreal to help shore up that right side on D. And, Lafreniere is sort of a reclamation project. I think that could be great, and I'm excited to see what Kent Hughes has in store. And yeah, as we get it, that's at the 12.5-minute mark, so I guess that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. But before we go, Jesse, did you have any thought who that goalie might be that had their first shutout of their career in the Habs 3-0 win against the Oilers in 1991? You're not going to get it.
It's not Patrick Roy. Who is it?
It's not Patrick Roy. It is André Racicot, former goaltender from Montreal, back up there in 1991, I believe, for a couple seasons. But unless you were a huge Habs fan in the early 90s, that's a tough one. Maybe the next trivia will be a little bit easier. But other than that, that'll do it for this edition of Habs Digest. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment, share it with any friends or family you think who might enjoy. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.